Everybody, I want to welcome you. For those of you who may not know, my name is Jackson Lahmeyer. My wife Kendra and I, we are privileged to serve as the pastors here at Sheridan. And I got a question for you. Who is ready to save this country November the 5th? All right, well, we're going to have a great time tonight. But before we get started, will you stand to your feet with me? We're going to open up in a word of prayer, and then we're going to sing our national anthem together. Father, we thank you for this evening. And God, we thank you for the privilege and the opportunity that we have, that we get to gather with your people in your house. And Father, we get to do something that is so important, that is to participate in saving the United States of America. And Father, it is our request here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, that one day out of Washington, D.C., justice will flow like a river, and righteousness like a never-ending stream. And it is our request, Lord, that every representative in our nation that refuses to bow down to you and listen to you, may you uproot them, and may you remove them and replace them with godly men and godly women who will do your will in this nation. Father, that is our request. We pray for President Trump and his family. And we thank you for the hedge of protection that has already been around him and will continue to surround him. God, may you give him supernatural strength to finish this race. God, we thank you in advance for victory in Jesus' mighty name. If you're in agreement, say amen. Well, stay standing and join us tonight in the singing of our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
All right, before you're seated, find three people, give them a high five, tell them you're glad to see them tonight. All right. Well, you can take your seats because I heard something very interesting this week. It was a story about a woman politician who is running for a particular office. I will not mention her name. But one day she woke up and she found herself in heaven. And she was surprised to be there. And she saw St. Peter at the pearly gates, and she went up to St. Peter and she said, "Why are there so many clocks in heaven?" And Peter said, "Well, every single person that has ever lived, they have a clock here in heaven." And she said, "Why are some of the clocks at different times than others?" And St. Peter said, "The clock ticks every single time a person would tell a lie." She was like, "Really?" She looked at one clock and said, "Whose clock is that? Because there's no ticks." And St. Peter said, "That's Mother Teresa. She never told one lie in her entire life." She said, "That's unbelievable. Whose clock is that? Because it's got like 2 ticks." And St. Peter said, "That clock right there, that belonged to Honest Abe. He only lied 2 times in his entire life." And this female politician, she said with a good smile on her face, "Where's my clock?" St. Peter said, "Well, your clock is upstairs because Jesus likes to use it as a ceiling fan." All right. Now we have broken the ice. We've got a very special guest with us, someone that has meant a lot to me in my life, and she's going to come and she's going to sing a prayer. It's a song you know, but you may not understand that this song is actually a prayer. And so would you do me a favor? Would you welcome Pastor Sharon Doherty of Victory Church here tonight as she comes to lead us in God Bless America.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You can be seated. You can go ahead with that. Where the storm clouds gather far across the sea, let us pledge allegiance to this land that's free, and let us all be grateful for this land so fair, as we lift our voices in this solemn prayer. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairies and to the oceans white with foam. My home, sweet home. From the mountains to the prairies and to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet God bless America.
Isn't that powerful? Now, tonight, we have a couple special guests that are here with us. And one of them I'm getting ready to bring on stage is someone who's made an impact indirectly at our church here at Sheridan. We have with us the CEO of a company called Public Square. And what I have found interesting was it was through a connection with Donald Trump Jr.'s team that I discovered this company, Public Square. And our church is in the process of transitioning to using Public Square as our online payment processor because, you know, you live in 2024, and as a church, most of our donations come in online. But through these online platforms, we pay ridiculously high fees on every donation. And so Public Square has come in, and they're giving us a lower fee, so much so that if we would have used Public Square over this last fiscal year, Sheridan.Church would have saved tens of thousands of dollars in just fees. But that's not the real reason why we have transitioned to Public Square. This is a conservative Christian company that has promised not to cancel us or demonetize us because of our political beliefs and Christian values. And so I know we've got a lot of pastors in the room. I know we've even got a lot of business owners in the room. And I just want to share this with you. If you're a pastor and you preach the full gospel, you have probably come to the realization that our culture is not cheering you on. Our culture wants to cancel you. And we've seen that with social media. We've seen the censorship. And if they're willing to do it on those platforms, what is stopping them from demonetizing us from receiving donations? And for me, it was a no-brainer. This company has promised not to demonetize us, not to cancel us because of our conservative beliefs, because guess what? They also hold to some conservative beliefs. So will you all welcome the CEO of Public Square tonight, Michael Seifert.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. How's it going? It's good to see you all. Glad to be here. I love Oklahoma. I haven't been here since I was like 8 years old. And when I was driving through Tulsa today, I was like, this is peaceful. It's wonderful. It's conservative. I saw a bunch of Trump flags. It was awesome. It was awesome. I'm a political refugee from California. Yeah, I know. But you'd be proud of me. I moved away from California a year ago to the state of Florida, so I'm living my values in a free state. I'm really glad to be here with you tonight. I love this church. It's been fantastic meeting the entire team and getting to know some of you who I've been able to speak to, and really looking forward to serving Sheridan in a business capacity, but more importantly, in a missional capacity. We love the mission of this church, and we believe that this church is following the Great Commission into all aspects of life. Some churches have a bit of a holy huddle mentality. We'll really focus on our values in the confines of four walls of a church building, but we don't talk about it out there. Well, outside we leave these walls. We don't like to talk much about our beliefs. We don't want to offend anybody. We don't want to step on anyone's toes. We don't want to speak the truth too much because then we're going to appear unloving, when the reality is what culture needs right now are people that are bold enough and love your neighbor enough to tell them the truth so that they're saved. And this church is doing it, and I love it. This is exactly what I believe the Great Commission is all about. You know the truth. What a crime it would be for me to know the truth and not tell my neighbor. How much would I have to hate my neighbor to see them about to be hit by a car and not warn them? And right now, there's a culture of death. There's a culture of confusion related to gender. There's a culture of nonsense economically that is a big freight train plowing down toward our neighbors. And some churches, sadly, want to say it'd be offending to tell them the train's about to hit them. But not this church. I love it. You guys care enough to say there's a freight train coming, and we believe our call as Christians is to warn culture and to speak the truth in a loving way such that it's invitational into the freedom that comes with knowing that Jesus Christ is Lord and Savior over this church, over politics, over culture, over the economy, and so on and so forth. Amen? Amen. I'm really grateful for the introduction. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Michael Seifert. I am from San Diego, but moved to West Palm Beach, Florida about a year ago. I love business. I've always loved business. And I specifically love the intersection of business and politics because I believe that those two go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. Everything that happens in politics directly has an impact on business and vice versa. 3.5 years ago now, it was in the middle of the COVID season, and in California, we were being locked down in the most draconian, tyrannical fashion you could ever imagine. This business is essential, and this one's non-essential, and your Walmart can stay open, but not your mom and pop shop, and the church has to shut down, but the liquor stores can stay open. It was a crime against humanity like I've never witnessed. So I had an idea. I saw a few businesses in our local community of San Diego County stand up. They stood for my freedoms. They said, I'm not bowing to a tyrannical government. I'm going to keep my doors open because I want to serve my customers. They love freedom, and so do I. God is my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, not the government. And by the way, the government isn't even my governing law of the land. The Constitution is. So when the government's acting unconstitutional, I'm following the document, not the government. So what happened is, I banded together a group of these small businesses in San Diego County that were willing to take a stand. And I said, what if I created a marketplace? I love tech, I love marketing, I like building websites. I thought, what if I build a marketplace filled with these businesses that love freedom? They love the Constitution. They've taken a stand in COVID for my values. What if we built a directory where consumers then could go and shop from these businesses and know with blessed assurance that they're not violating their convictions when they're shopping from these businesses? Right around the same time as when businesses like Starbucks came out and said that they're donating to abortion. Actually, they went farther than that. They said that we're going to match our employees' contributions to Planned Parenthood, like a 401k program. This is when Salesforce came out and said, Mark Benioff, CEO of Salesforce, one of the most powerful companies in the world, Mark came out and said, I am proudly the most anti-conservative CEO in the country. People got canceled. PayPal threatened to fine for disinformation on their platform. It was egregious. All of a sudden, the economy became weaponized against people like me that love my country and love my family values and love my Constitution. I'll do anything for it. So I thought, there's got to be a lot more people like me. Let's build a marketplace for them and let them start shopping. That way they could ditch the Targets of the world and they could go find a mom and pop shop that loved their values and would never preach about gender nonsense to their kids, but would love to just serve them a quality product in a way that was constitutionally sound and patriotic in nature. That was 3.5 years ago. Today, we have over 5 million customers, over 84,000 small businesses. We actually hit 1 million members on our platform faster than Twitter, Airbnb, Spotify, the list goes on. Because people are hungry to not only vote with their ballot, they want to vote with their wallet too. We want to have our entire lives be expressions of our convictions. I want to be the man in the arena, not just in church, but in politics, culture, and the economy. I want to know that every time I swipe my card, I'm doing so in a way that would make me feel proud to be a man of God. So that's what we built. And it's been a wild ride, and I'll tell you, it all started with a Bible verse, Proverbs 3:9, honor God with your wealth. I can't honor God with my wealth if I'm funding the darkness. I just can't. Small businesses that love this country and our Constitution will be the backbone that save this country. I firmly believe it. The globalists want to decimate Main Street. They want to cancel you if you disagree with their political views. They want to create a tyrannical system that's actually fascist in nature, where big government and big business is in bed together to weaponize their values against yours. So it's very funny that the people always say, oh, they're the right wing, they're the fascists. In reality, what we're seeing out of the Biden administration is actual fascism, co-opting big business like Amazon against you. And calling it a free market. A true free market is where government gets out of the way and patriots are able to shop with businesses that will not cancel them. And that's exactly what we built. We've done it in a marketplace at publicsquare.com for tens of thousands of business and millions of consumers. Then what was so cool is we started learning what our market was looking for. There's an unaddressed market of 100 million Americans out there just like us, and no big companies are even willing to talk to them. I ask people all the time, when's the last time you heard of a big, major Fortune 500 company that even gives a rip about what the Christian conservative mom from the Midwest thinks? When's the last time? They're all placating to San Francisco and New York. It's a marketing agency out of Brooklyn that thinks they have the best new idea of how to turn Bud Light into a great progressive brand, and look how that worked out. But I'll tell you, we the people are rising up. Goya Foods, you guys know Goya Foods? Okay, Goya Foods, largest provider of Latin American food in the United States. I like white people tacos. I don't know how to do it. So I need people who can cook me actual tacos to show me how to do it. But I went out to support Goya. I only know how to do black beans, but I thought I'm gonna try to make a chalupa, right? Like I went there to support this business. Why? Because in 2020, the CEO of Goya came out and said, I'm voting for Trump, sue me. He said, I'm voting for Trump. You know what happened? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez came out and said, we should boycott Goya. You know what happened then? It was Goya's best month of sales they've ever had. You had other people like me that do not know how to cook Latin American food driving to the grocery store to buy their products purely because I wanted Goya to know you got patriots standing with you. By the way, the CEO of Goya actually gave Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez Employee of the Month and hung her picture on the wall. There are patriots in this country like you and like me that want to support an economy that shares our values. So we learned where the holes are. We learned that this will sound random, we have a lot of moms on our platform that shop for baby goods. And they came to us and said, we need diapers and wipes. We've got a void of diapers and wipes. Why? Because did you know every single major diaper company in the United States today, without fail, verbally or financially supports abortion? I've sat with a culturally Jewish but religiously atheist leftist banker in New York City who said, look, I'm not even with you on the value stuff, but that doesn't make any sense. It makes no moral sense and it makes no economic sense. But Huggies, Pampers, Coterie, Honest, Hello Bello, all of them. Some of them even donated to Planned Parenthood. It's a diaper company. So you know what we did? We learned that we have thousands of moms that want a solution that would love life and would love family and would celebrate the miracle of every life, born and unborn. So we created a diaper company last year. And I'll tell you, thank you. I'll tell you, we launched Every Life a year ago, about 14 months ago now. It's the fastest growing baby brand in the entire world. And we're actually launching in other countries. We're launching in South Korea. We're taking it around the world because there's a hunger for brands that would celebrate the basics again, like life, family, and freedom. And where we keep seeing holes, we're gonna go fill them. We started a payments company because we had so many of our gun merchants in the 2A space that were on Public Square saying, I can't stay with a payment processor for longer than 3 months without being canceled. So you know what we did? We built a payments processing company, and next year alone, we're gonna process well over $2 billion just in gun transactions. We love life, we love family, we love freedom. Why would we not exemplify that with our business? We believe that every human being in the public square is worthy of a voice. It's the First Amendment, so we would never cancel you for speaking your political views. That cancel-proof promise that Pastor mentioned is real. It's real, because if we don't have it, what do we have? I'll end with this. The reason we started Public Square with the name Public Square, in Matthew 16, Jesus says to Simon Peter, on this rock I will build my church. You guys remember that? And the gates of hell will not prevail against it. Practically in Israel, where that location is, it's a massive rock. I've been there. And at the bottom of the rock, there's like a dip that heads to a cave, and there's a big opening at the bottom. And it was historically known as the gate to Hades. So when Jesus is talking to Simon Peter, it was very strategic that he said, on this rock I will build my ecclesia here, and the gates of Hades will not prevail against it. It was very real imagery. But the interesting thing is Jesus used the word ecclesia. He didn't use synagogue. He used ecclesia, and that was purposeful. It's a Greek word. The most modern translation of ecclesia, you know what it is? Public square. God was saying, I don't just want four walls. I want you to live your life in the public square and build your church there. The relationships you make, the churches you attend, the money you spend, do it in a way that glorifies God and honors your convictions. That's our mission through the marketplace. You're about to hear from a man who I deeply respect, who's a business partner and incredible friend named Donald Trump Jr., who's doing that in the political and the economic space. But I wanted to tell you, thank you for being a part of a church that wants to partner with a company like ours. Thank you for being a part of church that will stand firm in the face of opposition and live your convictions out in the public square. It will change the country. Amen? Amen. Thank you all so much. Oh yeah, hey. Thank you, thank you. Also, we're hosting an awesome event in Orlando, Florida on October 10th and 11th, and we would love to have you there. Don Jr. will be there. We're going to have a whole swath of incredible speakers and business leaders. So if you have a vested interest in the future of our economy, we encourage you to join us in Orlando, October 10th and 11th. I believe Sheridan might be bringing a little bit of a coalition, so we'd love to see you there, and we're going to talk about how we can change our country through the power of the marketplace. Sound good? Thank you so much for hosting me.
Thank you. I really would encourage you pastors and business owners to look into Public Square. We've made the transition because I know, you see, here's my philosophy. Who in here is on Facebook? You can be honest, okay. My philosophy is if you have not landed in Facebook jail by now, you're doing it wrong, all right? And so censorship and this cancel culture, it's a real thing, and it's only a matter of time until they try to demonetize churches that take a stand for what is right. And so now is the time to transition, I believe, to Public Square, and so I'm a big proponent of it. They're not paying me a penny to say that, and I think it's a great thing. And so tonight, we've got also another special guest from Florida with us, right? Yes. Who's here tonight? Will you all stand to your feet and will you put your hands together for Donald Trump Jr.?
What's going on, guys? Let's go.
Y'all excited?
Thank you.
All right, take a seat for a second.
I was wondering if you didn't tell them a little bit. There was some confusion there.
They weren't sure which Trump was.
Exactly.
Laura was here last September, and your brother will be here next month. And so the last Trump remaining to come to Sheridan. All right. So
I was thinking maybe it was like Tim Walz. I could come out like, like a crazy person. Like Chris Farley rolling out on the stage every time.
Yeah, I don't think we would invite him.
Probably not. No.
Anyways, all right. So we are so glad that you are here in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Good to
Welcome
be here.
to not only God's country, but also Trump country.
I think that's pretty safe, but I was listening to what you were saying about Public Square and backstage and obviously taking care of the churches by saying we're not giving them anything until we get through this, because I could get through this, Jackson, and lose Oklahoma for Trump.
We were talking backstage
I can go off
about
the handle a little bit.
John Jr.
Could be
and I
rough.
were coming up with a plan to make sure this wasn't such a disaster tonight that it would cost Trump the state of Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So we were game planning on that. So we have a plan.
Got a plan.
And let me ask you, though, because I know everyone's wondering it. How are you, your father, and the whole Trump family doing with these near misses on his life?
Honestly, at this point, I don't even think they're near misses. That, especially the first one, that was divine intervention.
Yeah.
You don't... honestly, I think that moment made a lot of people who probably weren't all that spiritual all of a sudden be like, you know,
The tip of the
you know,
ear.
because I've been to, and I don't think this is even like Trump hyperbole. I've probably been to 1 billion Trump rallies. I don't know that I've ever seen my father like study a graph. You know, it's not, you know, he's kind of off the cuff, right? We just, you know, half the time I'm like, oh God, what's he gonna say next? Like I talked about the speech, I knew what was coming, and yeah, he surprised me. So we have to adapt on the fly. But to see that in that moment, you know, and especially, you know, given all the failures that led up to that, you know, the guy was known for 20 minutes. He was known with a rangefinder, you know. It's not exactly something that you bring to like a concert or a rally, you know, like I'm a hunter. I use a rangefinder all the time, but like I use it for shooting, right? It's basically the only purpose. You know, there wasn't a golf hole in sight, so it wasn't like they could say it was for golf. You know, and you think about, you know, they've known about it for 10 minutes, then they still let him get on the stage. And then the guy has 10 minutes anyway. And then you see the body cam footage of all the cops screaming like, but there's a guy with a gun on the roof. Don't you think we should probably do something about this? You know, so it was a crazy experience. If you want, I mean, the whole story for me was sort of an interesting one because, you know, it was a Saturday weekend in the summer, and my daughter called me, my 17-year-old, which never happens, right? Like, hey, yeah. Dad, I want to spend time with you. I'm like, yeah, I think it's like, you know, the Harris campaign, like, punking me. No, but my daughter called me, and she's like, you know, Dad, I want to go fishing. I'm like, really? Like,
wow.
Yeah, who are you, and what have you done with my daughter? So of course, you know, now my plans changed, and I'm going fishing, and so we're out there, and we're having a great time, and doing pretty well, and you know, I just get a call, and Don, your father's been shot, and I'm like, and like, you know, there's only degrees of bad in that conversation, right? This is not like good or bad. There's only degrees of bad, from like really bad to extremely bad. Well, we don't know. It's like, what do you mean you don't know? I'm 10 miles offshore. I got like
Oh wow.
Now. You know, we're flying in, and it took 90 minutes to get any information. I guess the one thing they did do, I guess, was shut down, you know, cellular communications in the vicinity. So, like, there's no in or out. There's no, you know, so for an hour and a half, I don't know if my father's dead, alive, whatever it is. By the time I get in, I'm starting to get some cell signal. So I see him come up, sort of defiant, you know, in that moment. And, you know, that was like a good sign, but you never know, right? If we've seen, you could get hit and you still have a reaction, and then bad stuff happens, and so we don't know. And but that was sort of impressive to me. I was like, you know, these days everyone's gotten really comfortable being, you know, a tough guy on like a keyboard, right? Everyone's a tough guy on the internet, right? It's, you get shot in the face and you come back up like ready to fight. Like, I'm like, that's tough. That's real. It's like
pretty impressive.
That's the kind of stuff that keeps like dictators in check, right?
Yeah, that's
yeah. You know,
that's the American spirit.
Yeah, 100%. That's what, again, it's what kept, you know, our adversaries from invading their neighbors. You know, it kept our enemies in check. That's what, you know, allowed us to actually generate peace deals rather than never-ending wars. You know, everyone else, you know, talks a big game, but people understand strength. I mean, I think those dictators understood strength before it was actually displayed for the rest of the world to affirm it. You know, that wasn't, for me, it wasn't something new. It was just affirmation of what I already knew about my father. But, you know, we finally get him on the phone, and, you know, 90 minutes in, I'm on there. It's sort of, you know, by then, the whole family, it was enough time. My whole family was, you know, there. And, you know, Eric was on the phone, and, you know, my daughter was with me still, and my other kids had gotten there, and my wife had been there, and it's just, we're all on the speakerphone, and, you know, he gets on, and he's just okay. And I was just like, you know, that was the most badass thing I've ever seen. Pardon my French. I know we're in church. Sometimes there's no other vernacular. You just got to say it. I forgive me.
We'll pray afterwards.
Feels like he's been on our side, so I'm going to go with it. Probably okay. And, you know, so we little laugh about that, a little bit of small talk, but it's still just, I mean, It's just so heavy, right? And so, you know, finally, I just had to break the ice because I'm usually the inappropriate one, as you can see. It's just like, listen, most important question, Dad. How is the hair? And everyone's like, oh, God, Don. The hair is fine, Don. It's a little bloody. A lot of blood. out of blood, but the hair is okay, Donna. And, honestly, it was sort of, the icebreaker I think we all needed. After last weekend, it was like, at this point, honestly, it took me I called a few hours later because it was like, we're getting a little too
Comfortable.
accustomed with this.
Yeah.
It shouldn't have to be like, oh, it's just another weekend. Your father got shot. That's not normal. We're not living in normal times. It's, I sort of said it, on Monday when I'd sort of, again, had enough time to process it, which is honestly, I'm just sick and tired of having to have that conversation with my 5 young kids. But, to me, again, I'll get criticized for it, whatever it is, but this is a result of the actions of today's left, of today's media. When you call someone Hitler, literally the greatest threat to democracy ever, you do that day in and day out, and lunatics like this guy, by the way, who had been given platforms in the New York Times, he may be a lunatic because he's an assassin, but let's not forget, he was interviewed in basically every major leftist paper over the last few years on these things. So they still give, these clowns a platform. So they'll, sort of disavow. But I'm I don't know, it didn't stop you from being in the pages of the Times. So, they're created, and they have created this sort of radical response. And, there's no question of that. So, we have to understand what we are truly up against, because it is evil. And again, when you see, sort of that head turn at exactly the right millisecond and you're saying, man, it has to be a play out of good versus evil. We just need everyone else to get on board and understand that and not buy into the narrative. Because it didn't stop Hillary Clinton from saying he's an existential threat to democracy within 12 hours or 24 hours. Yeah. They're not going to stop. We just have to sort of wake up on our side and be what haven't they lied to us about? Every conspiracy theory, everyone who was dubbed insane, they all turned out to be right. Everything that they say in terms of their narrative has been 100% proven to be wrong. But on our side, we're you know what? I heard something on CNN. We still give them the benefit of the doubt, and honestly, we shouldn't be.
Yeah.
It's reality. It's sad, but true.
Well, I find it interesting because we know all the stuff that your family's gone through because of your dad running for president, becoming president, running for president again. Mm-hmm. We know about the lawfare, the assassination plots, and so to me, there's kind of two things with your family. Either there is something driving you all to keep doing this that is so incredible, or y'all are downright crazy.
I was going to say, maybe both. Maybe both.
Well, what is it that's driving?
I'm not going to discount the latter. I think there's a little combination of all of that. I sort of figured that out for myself, right? I went from, I grew up as the son of a billionaire in New York City. I was always a conservative. I was always an outdoorsman. I was a competitive shooter. All these things that, so all my friends on the weekend were, sort of small town Americans. That's what I chose to spend my time with. But I used to get invited to the cool person party and all that, and June 16th, 2015, that escalator ride happens, and it wasn't actually that day. Everyone tries to make it seem like the outrage cycle happened that day. It didn't. Everyone was sort of silent because they understood everything he said was actually 100% accurate. It became outrage, what he said, about 2 weeks later when he was going through the roof in the polls, and they were like, oh, now he's a threat to, the chosen one, which would have been Hillary Clinton and, whatever it was. But, it was at that point, where you realized it was going to be a very dynamic shift. He knew it, actually, the day he announced. We got, before sort of the infamous escalator ride made famous by The Simpsons and the announcement itself, and there was an elevator ride. It was, my whole family, my two oldest kids, because, Chloe was 1, but the 2 oldest kids were there, and my dad just looked me in the eye as we're going down. He's about to make the announcement. And he just goes, and now we find out who our real friends are. And I'd say truer words have not been spoken, but it's really more than just sort of, the understanding to your point about are we either being watched out for or are we crazy? It was, he knew what was going to happen, but more importantly, he knew what was going to happen, and he did it anyway, because enough is enough. And so for us, we then experienced all the crazy lawfare. You know, they tried to impeach him twice. They tried to bankrupt him. They tried to take away his businesses. We owed New York State $500 million for paying back loans on time with interest. I'm still trying to figure that one out. But like, you know, again, just because it's nonsense doesn't mean you don't still have to deal with it. That, you know, that's the reality of what they will do. There is nothing, you know, and if that doesn't work, then, you know, we'll go insane enough to encourage people to try to actually kill him, which they've done now twice. You know, I think for me honestly, it's sort of a good sort of the postlude to, you know, Michael's introduction. I saw a lot of this, and we were a family business, and we changed the skyline of New York, and we got invited to all the cool person parties, as I said, and, you know, there wasn't a bank that you couldn't, you know, pick up the phone and do business with, and there wasn't an insurance company that wouldn't insure you, and, you know, then all of a sudden you put that R next to your name, and me, you know, I guess I got the fight gene, and so I became sort of really vocal in politics and, you know, did that, and all of a sudden then, you know, we have businesses that are debanked and we're getting the lawfare stuff, and, you know, I mean, you know, I won't say who, and you know, someone very close to me that may or may not be here in about a month, you know, literally had a bank account with someone who's buying a house or moving to Florida and whatever it may be, and calls the bank where he has more money than the loan that he needs in with that bank, and they're like, yeah, but we can't write you a loan. It's like, but you'll keep my money and make the but you won't even write me a loan because I'm a conflict, you know, and like, yeah, you know, and Eric, like, you know, I'm much more vocal. I'm much more, you know, I'll get a lot more aggressive than him, and then you just see that kind of stuff going on a daily basis. I started a media business just to aggregate news. I'll give you the New York Times, MXM News. I'll give you the New York Times. I'll give you, you know, Breitbart, and you make your own opinion. You can curate it sort of yourself and see. And, you know, I got a call from my partner in that deal. You know, it was like day of CPAC like 2 years ago. It was like, you know, it's a small business, but, you know, $750,000 in like an operating account to pay payroll and to do these things going back and forth. It's like, I think we were hacked. I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, I checked the balance. We had nothing in the bank today. I go, nothing? Like, that's a lot. That's a big change for a small business. Sure. He calls the bank frantically, no response. Calls the bank again. I make a phone call. It happens to be CPAC, so I'm sitting there talking to the Speaker of the House. I'm like, this is what's going on. He goes, what the heck's happening? It sort of worked out very poorly for them. It was a Friday, so they had finally get a hold of him. He's like, oh yeah, we forgot to call. We just don't want to do business with you. There's a cashier's check in the mail. I'm like, we have an operating, you can't send a cashier's check. It takes a week to get there by mail. They broke up with us by mail. Like, they didn't even call. Like I said, it worked out pretty stupidly for them because they're, you know, it happened to be a Friday. You know, I was like telling you at the time it was Kevin McCarthy about it, and Kerry Lake was there, and Matt Gaetz, and all my friends were like that you know, big political people. They're like, this is crazy. This was PNC Bank. Like, this is a major bank. Like, it wasn't some little, you know, leftist, like, this is a bank in central Pennsylvania that caters to a lot of people that are conservative. And I was like, that was really stupid. Like, I'm going to make this hurt as much as I possibly can because, like, yeah, you have to. And so we did. And, you know, by Saturday morning, you know, it was an error. It's like, what part of, we don't want to do business with you anymore? Like, it's not an error. It's like, the error is that you got caught by someone who has the platform. So, you know, when I met Michael about this time 2 years ago, you know, we started talking, and, you know, he had this idea for this company. I go, 100%. Like, we have to stop capitulating. We have to stop catering to this nonsense. Like, if we can create it, at first it started off as like let's call it like an Angie's List of conservative businesses, people who are signing off that, like, we believe in free speech and your right to this, like, just all these basic tenets of American, you know, just the Constitution, frankly. And, you know, that are not espoused by, you know, Amazons and big corporate and woke corporate, and, you know, and we just said, like, we do have to create a way to fight back, and you can fight back and vote with your wallet. Yes. And so when Michael did this, I was like, I'm in, like, 100%. We got to go.
It's a no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer, and we've seen it. All these businesses and ministries, because you happen to be pro-life, they get canceled and you get debanked and you can't get insurance, and it's insanity. I mean, this is literally, you know, communist level stuff going on in America. The people who preach about fascism all day long and blame everyone they don't like for fascism are the ones actually being fascist, but, you know, never let, you know, the truth get in the way of a good story. And so we saw this, and it's so critical, and so it's been really exciting to, you know, work with Michael, you know, on all of these things, and then just the natural verticals. You know, what he talked about, every life being, imagine like a diaper company that is like all of them actively contributing to like Planned Parenthood. I'm like, I don't know. It doesn't make sense.
It kind of reminds me of like the whole Queers for Palestine thing. You know, it's just like it just doesn't. It doesn't add up. You know.
It's weird because I have said like I will fly you over there. Let's see how it works out. No one takes me up on it. It doesn't stop them from marching, but it's almost like they know they're full of it. But it's just we're such at a critical juncture. Like we got to stop using our hard-earned dollars. It's hard to make money under Bidenomics. Okay, like trust me. If Donald Trump Jr. has sticker shock at the grocery store, folks, Tulsa, we have a problem. Okay, like. No, last summer I took my kids. I just remember it because it was the first time it really like hit me. Like I'm annoyed enough when it costs me $150 to fill up my truck, and like I get it. It's not going to change my habits. I'm not one of these leftists that goes out there and says, my 2-month-old baby was crying about Trump and nuclear proliferation in the Korean Peninsula. Like, okay. But like I was there, and at the time it was my son Spencer and my son Donnie, and one was 10 and one was 14, and it was me. We got McDonald's, and it was $48, and I'm like. Man, it's like, I don't, like, it's a 10-year-old. Like, I remember when the Happy Meal was like $5. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not, and I just said, man, like, if I'm affected by it, and again, I'm not saying it's changing my habit, but imagine what a hardworking family making $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year, like, $48 from McDonald's? Like,
wow. They're
getting crushed. But, day in and day out, they're going to tell you, the media's going to tell you, you're better off. I mean, I read it in the papers, and, I went to where my father went to business school, to the Wharton School of Finance, and, I'm reading, the New York Times, and Paul Krugman, the guy, Nobel laureate economist, right? He won the Nobel Prize in economics, and he does this thing, he actually did another article this week. We've beat inflation. I'm like, wait, you mean inflation has beaten us to death, all right? But this was like a year ago, and he did this thing. You know what? We're actually doing really well on inflation, and there's this chart and all this. I'm like, what is he talking? I can't, he's done much more in economics than I have, but I'm also not an imbecile. And so I'm confused, and then I look, there's an asterisk at the bottom. He goes, we're actually winning on inflation if you don't include these 4 things. So I'm like, okay. Housing, transportation, energy, and food. I'm like,
so like life essentials.
Listen, I'm a gun guy. Like, I need a gun, but like after that, like, you make those the 5 things, and I'm like, maybe a fishing rod. Like, I'm good for life. Like, there is nothing other than housing, energy, transportation, and food for that's it. And he's like, we're doing great. If you take out literally everything you need to survive, you should be thrilled. Like, this guy won the Nobel Prize in economics. He's writing this with a straight face in the New York Times. I'm like, I don't know, Paul. That asterisk seems like kind of a big one. Like, maybe you want to highlight that a little bit more, you imbecile. Like. But there's no lengths they won't go to lie to us, to gaslight us, to tell us that if you're not happy, paying 30% more in rent, or 50% more for gas, or 65% more for coffee, or you're a terrible person. You're a racist, or whatever it is, right? They'll call you whatever. It doesn't matter. Like at this point, when they're what's interesting is. They've called like so many people that for so long with no actual foundation. It's just like the easy button of today's left. That like now, no one even cares. And that's a shame, because honestly, like, I'm not going to say that there isn't racism left. And
sure.
Of course there is. Like, and it's a problem. The real disservice they're doing is that the people who are actually afflicted by it, and it's, they would have you believe it's the cause of and solution for literally all of life's problems. That's not the case. But for those who are actually affected, now it's like, ho-hum.
Yeah.
And so it's such a shame what's going on.
They've diluted the word so much, it's meaningless.
It's meaningless. They do
totally
that with a lot.
Meaningless. Now, can I take us down conspiracy lane for a moment? You don't have to participate.
I'm your Huckleberry.
You don't have to participate if you don't want to. But
I'm going to participate.
All right.
Hey, I've been called everything in the book. I did 50 hours of testimony for treason because apparently I was a Russian asset. The Trumps, we needed the money apparently. Again, it just doesn't have to make sense anymore. That's
of course not.
Like I said, I was the number 2 target of Russia. I did, just so we're clear, 50 hours of testimony for treason, according to Adam Schiff, a crime punishable by death. So that was me. Like, I understand that I am not the upstanding citizen that Hunter Biden is. I know. Please forgive me. I understand that I am not of his quality of character or otherwise. But I have a feeling if it was my laptop, it'd be a problem.
I would say so. Hey, was anybody here when we brought John Paul McIsaac, the laptop guy? All right, some of you are here. Hunter Biden's lawyer is starting to sue me over that, by the way. So anyways, back to you, Conspiracy Lane.
Yeah.
From what you've observed, 8 years, you've kind of been pretty close to the inside. Would you say that there really is a uniparty of Democrats and Republicans that are in a unified effort trying to stop Donald Trump's America First agenda? Is that real?
100%. You have that and you have the deep state. And you see that. I mean, and it's always interesting to me, like, the sort of the biggest rhino conservatives, in Washington, they all come from like the most conservative states.
Like this one.
You may or may not have an example here. But it's almost habitual. It's almost like the Democrats realize, they can't win, so they vote for like the moderate Republicans, and then someone else convinces a couple guys who aren't paying attention, and they end up in all these places. It's absolute lunacy to me, but I 100% see it. I mean, again, with senators like perhaps we're discussing, or a Mitt Romney, or it's literally like with Republicans like that, who needs Democrats? Like, that's the whole point. That's why this Senate fight is so important this year, and why I'm going around the country, trying to help these guys, because we don't control the Senate with 52 Republicans, because there's like 3 or 4 of them that'll just side with the Democrats, because it's an easy existence to be a weakling conservative. You can go to your home state and you tell everyone they usually get a crowd of about 4 people that show up, and they'll preach the gospel of conservatism better than you can preach the gospel, Jackson, and then they go to D.C. and it's like, I want to be invited to the cool person holiday party. They won't call it a Christmas party because, that'd be verboten. But, it's an easy existence to be a reliable flip vote in Washington. You can be as conservative as you want in your home state. You can vote 75% of the time with the Republicans. But when it really matters, when you're the tie-breaking vote, if you're the guy that flips for them, I mean, you might as well be Nancy Pelosi in Washington, D.C. You can do no wrong.
What I've discovered in your father's first term, it just seemed like the biggest hurdle he had was not necessarily Democrats, but it was fellow Republicans.
It was Paul Ryan. We control and Mitch McConnell, frankly, but we controlled the House, we controlled the Senate. Paul Ryan, we could have built the wall in 5 minutes. Instead we're spending 100 times more than it would have cost to finish the wall now annually supporting the millions and millions of illegal immigrants who, again, if you're a talented guy from Eastern Europe, or from if you're an actual someone politically being persecuted in Cuba, you can't get into America because they're like, no, we're not voting for socialism. Like, only those who are going to be active dependents, those people can get in. Because the Democrat Party, they've displaced all their reliable voters. They've run roughshod all of them. They treated them like garbage. So they're like, you know what, I may not just be voting blindly Democrat anymore. So they're like, okay, if you're not going to do that, we're just going to bring in 20 more people to displace you. There's a reason they're being put into, 20,000, they brought in 5% of the population of Haiti. They were eating people in Haiti, literally, what was it? Barbecue the Cannibal. I mean, what could go wrong? Let's bring 5% of the population here. We'll stick 20,000 in a town like Springfield, or a population, by the way, a population of 50,000. So it's not like adding 50,000 people to New York City, a population of 8 to 12 million people. You literally, add 50% to the population, and it's only happening in like reliable red areas. I wonder why that is.
It's good.
So
It's an issue. Now, let me ask you this, because your father is in a battle with Kamala Harris. One word. You only get one word. And remember, you're in church.
well, that takes out like half of my vernacular, so we're good.
One word to describe a potential Harris presidency.
Disaster. I mean, no, but think about it. No, I mean, seriously. All you have what's unique about this election is you've had 4 years under both policies. I understand that the media is trying to pretend like Kamala Harris started her political career 3 weeks ago. Like, she is a radical California Marxist. She is the daughter of a Marxist professor. Like, that doesn't go away. That'd be like me being soft. It's just
in your genes.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen. Like, I can't turn that off, and neither can she. But they're trying to erase decades of political history. They didn't fact check her in the debate. She's not going to take away your guns, other than she said like mandatory buyback programs the week before. 4 days after the debate, she said we have to get an assault weapon ban. But she's not going to do any of those things. But they're able to gaslight you because they have $1 trillion of media backing them. They have $1 trillion in big tech. Literally, these are $1 trillion institutions, far greater than anything else we could even imagine. I mean, I feel like if I was running their side, we'd be winning elections 99-0. There'd be like the other people would be like people who forgot to vote. They have that much going for them. The fact that it's even close is almost amazing. It means we're so right, but it's so hard to overcome that, right? You saw what they did in the Democrat primary in 2020, right? Every person on the stage, Kamala Harris included, right? I know she's the chosen one now, but let's not forget, in 2020, she could not get 1% of the Democrat populace. She's gotten 0 this time around, but now she's the chosen one. We had 3 weeks of media clarity where they were actually honest about Joe Biden, but it wasn't because they were being honest, it was because they realized he couldn't win, so they had to give themselves another chance at winning. But you saw them on that debate stage. Will you eliminate fracking? Everyone's hand goes up. Everyone's hand. 3 weeks later, 4 weeks later, whatever it was against the debate, my father, I would never do that, because they realized it would cost them Pennsylvania and Michigan and Ohio and, congressional seats in Texas, whatever it may be. And then on day one, they did it anyway with the Keystone Pipeline. They got rid of it, killed tens of thousands of good-paying jobs for hardworking Americans, and instead we import oil from Iran, the world's leading state sponsor of terror, and Venezuela, a regime we never recognized. They'll tell you anything. They're doing it now. I mean, I saw on Fox News, they're like, no, Kamala Harris has been really ardent about not stopping fracking. I was like, well, will she give new licenses? Because, you can let people keep doing what they're existing doing, but prevent the business from going on, prevent people from being able to invest in the future, make it really costly to do that. But, I don't even believe that's the case. I mean, when I watch Fox News and they're saying, well, we're going to give her the benefit of the doubt because she's been really ardent. It's like, no, but she did it last time. She was really ardent. That she wasn't, that they weren't going to do it. When they ran together, and then on day one they did it. They'll say anything. But Hillary Clinton's out there. We want to, be able to throw people in jail for misinformation. I was like, well, are they throwing Hillary in jail for Russia? Because that came from her and her campaign. I, for the record, am not for jailing people for free speech. I may make an exception for Hillary. I'm just saying. I mean, I just take that one personally because, again, I was the number 2 target of it, and they wanted
I didn't know that.
Yeah, well,
50 hours of
50 hours, and I saw Paul Manafort, who they threw in jail for a few. I saw him at the RNC, and he was like, it was interesting. I mean, he came to me, and I knew it was bad. I knew it was real. Just because it was nonsense doesn't mean it's not real. If they could get you, it wasn't even about what they could do. It's just like if they ask you the same question for 50 hours, and well, it was 12:02. No, it was 12:01. Now it's perjury. I'm not going to get the Hunter Biden treatment. It's going to be a little different. And when he tells me what was going on with him, they were like, if you give us Don Jr., we're just going to let you go, and we're going to put him away in jail for 20 years. Is basically, essentially what he told me. And he's like, well, there's just nothing to give. They're like, it doesn't matter. Just give us something. So it's like, wow. It's like I knew it was bad. I didn't quite realize how bad it was. But again, there's no limit to what they will do. If you think that, you know what? If they get Donald Trump out of the way, it's just going to go back to normal. No. Donald Trump's just the guy stopping them from going after you. Because if they can do it to a guy like Donald Trump with his platform, with his means, with his following, his ability to fight back, who won't they do it to? Like if they go after that guy, if they can do that, they can go after anyone, and more importantly, they will. They're saying it out loud, right? I mean, I want to know, the ministry of truth that they tried putting in last time that they're trying to reinstitute now, who's going to be the arbiter of that? Because the mainstream media lied about everything, Remember how many doctors and scientists lost their medical grants because they said, I don't know, guys, do you think maybe the Wuhan virus came from the lab in Wuhan that studies the exact virus? I don't know. Seems like, I got canceled. I'm sure like everyone else, I heard you do the cancel bit, about social media. I got canceled when that came out. Because, Don, what do you know? You're not a virologist. You don't have to be a virologist. You just have to not be an idiot.
It's kind of like knowing the difference between a male and a female, right?
It's not that hard. I'm female. It's easy. This is not rocket science, folks, but that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The arbiters of truth are going to be the people that have been lying to us about everything. The arbiters of truth are going to be the ones that tell you there are 4,763 genders and you must know them all. No, your children, if you're in a public school system, and frankly even some of the private school systems now, your kids will know those, but they will not know basic math because they're too busy learning those.
It's true. It's a problem.
Yeah.
Which leads me to a question.
Oh, boy.
Because we got a big problem ahead of us. As you said, a potential Harris victory would be disaster.
Yeah.
So I think it's safe to say, we say it every election, this is the most important election in our lifetime. And I would say, no, this is the most important election in our nation's lifetime. And so you're out.
Yep.
You're on the campaign trail. You're seeing. This is not your first time in this rodeo. This is three times now.
Yeah. I'm praying for November 6th. Win, lose, or fraud. It's
You do this.
I've done this a lot, but after that, I'm good for a while.
What's giving you hope and confidence that we can save this country in November?
This. No, it's amazing. Right now, there's no limit to what they will do. So, there's nothing would surprise me at this point. I think we've witnessed that over the last 2 months. I see an enthusiasm, across the board, from demographics that, when they come up to me and they're yelling, "Hey, Don Jr.," I'm like, "Oh God, this is gonna go bad." And it's like, "Thank you so." I'm like, "Well, I didn't have that coming. I didn't see that coming. It wasn't on my bingo card." People are waking up. They finally get it. They find, again, it's not perfect, right? There are people, they're working hard. They're not, if you're in this room, you're into this stuff. You're following it. You're paying attention. You're seeing it. You're making up your own opinions. There are those that are listening to news 2 minutes a day and they're still, they're still blinded by the nonsense. And, it's hard. They don't have time to live their own American dream, what's left of it, what hasn't been sort of exported to China by moron politicians. But the amount of people that come up to me across the board, I've never seen anything like it now.
Yeah.
2 months out, again, just for perspective, it is not my first rodeo, but I was probably the most active guy on the road in real America in 2016. For us, for perspective, I only just kept track in October, so I don't know what the rest of it was, but it was hundreds more. But October 2020, I did 104 rallies.
Wow.
That month myself, so it's like, I'm on the ground. I get it. I see the people. I had a feeling then. I was like, I think we're going to do better this time, and we did. But they sort of weaponized COVID and the cheating and the nonsense. And this time, it's like October, but it was in June. Of the amount of people that are they're fed up.
You feeling an intensity?
Yeah, it's just again the amount of people from places you're just not expecting, right? It's sort of amazing. It's really it's pretty cool to see. Now, we're going to need every ounce of that enthusiasm. Every person especially, I'm not so worried about Oklahoma, but, if you have friends in swing states, just, apathy is what's going to kill us. We're going to say, we got this. And you see that in the polling. It's either such nonsense designed to demoralize you so you sit at home and, cry for your mommy, or it's designed to get you overconfident. It doesn't matter. Everyone, every call you can make, whatever you can do, every door you can knock on, everything, no holds barred through the election.
It's got to be all hands on deck.
It has to be.
And one of the most effective things for people here, us, because safe to say tonight I don't feel like was a disaster, so I think we're going to win
So far,
Oklahoma.
so good. Yeah,
So
so
far,
so
we haven't
good. Yeah.
ended yet, but
Hey, there's time. I can still blow this up. Okay, I can still blow this up.
but let me tell you, for us in this room, one of the most effective things we can do is to be actively praying for the Trump family and for this country over the next several months. So we're going to do that tonight.
We'll take it, and we need it.
Oh yeah, and this church is praying for you all specifically. But last question here for you, and we'll just kind of make it more of a personal question. Tell us something about your dad that the media would never, ever want us to know. That's positive. Gotta clarify,
Hey,
you know?
honestly, at this point, I think it's safe to say that he's like the most vetted human in like world history. If there was more, we'd have known about it. You know, so it's it turns out most of the stuff they said about that all turned out to be lies anyway. But minor details. Now, honestly, I think it's an interesting thing, and I guess I'll say because I posted the story like earlier, today. I guess the rally yesterday in New York. There was a guy there that was like, it was about my grandfather really, and he was. I guess his father passed away, had a massive heart attack, and the kids were, the mother was left with nothing, and I guess he was on the board of the local school, and they were there, and they're going to have to leave, and it was him and his brother, I guess, and sister, and he goes, and Fred Trump came knocking on my door, and just decided to pay for our tuition for the rest of high school. He was on the board of the school, and he just said, "This is on me. I'm not letting you go back into the public school system. That's it." And this is a story that you see the guy, he's in tears telling this story for the first time maybe ever, and it's like. I never heard that story. And every time I'm on the road, and there's so many, I live in Florida now, so there's so many families that are, former New Yorkers that have been down there and they grew up in Queens or Brooklyn. And, so many of these stories that I hear, there's like a Trump story, like, he did this for me. And I'm like, it's sort of interesting. I hear all of these things. I asked my father, he goes, "Oh, yeah, I remember that guy." I was like, why did you ever tell that story? There's a, shockingly, there's a sort of, there's a reason that people work for him for 40 years.
Yeah.
You don't hear a lot of people that work for Trump for 2 years and they're there for life, and there's a reason for that. And it's sort of interesting because I will say, honestly, his biggest political liability is, frankly, he has so much empathy and kindness, but on the world stage, he just understands the reality of the world, sort of like the elevator story. He just understands what's going on. He's like, I can't have Putin think I'm soft. It's an old school mentality. I'm like, but you could. It's like, no, I don't need, I'm not going to go for political points. I need to be able to go in there. And he's both right and wrong, right? Yeah. It's pretty clear that he was the only guy to actually get things done geopolitically, right? When you talk about Korea, he's the guy that has the guts to walk over that line and kept everyone in check. You hear the story about, what was it? One of the guys, the head of the Taliban, when the media was like, "I can't believe he's meeting with them. He's giving, they came to Camp David. They can't." I'm like, we're at war for, you have to be able to negotiate with it. Doesn't mean you think they're a nice guy. Right? So he shows the guy a satellite picture of his home. Why do you show me this? We'd like the IED tax to stop. Or what? And he walks out. And guess what? For 18 months, there wasn't an American killed. Because guess what? A guy like that, he only understands force. He only understands resolve. They tried to do it to my father with Putin again. And, we had the biggest sanctions on Russia ever. Putin is making a killing right now because of the morons in D.C. Now they're like, well, we're going to stop the oil so we're losing the petrodollar, which is going to kill America in and of itself. Oil prices went through the roof. Putin makes the delta on it because it's its biggest export. It got him closer to China, got him closer to Saudi. He's paying for this war of his for free with the delta and then some, and he's built back his manufacturing base across the country. And Biden thinks he's a tough guy. Meanwhile, my father goes out there, I guess it was that Helsinki meeting, and they're like, well, what do you have to say? And they want him to be like, he's, an idiot, and he's this, and he's... Well, we had a great talk. He's a smart guy. How dare he? Because these morons in the press, they've never negotiated. You wouldn't let them negotiate a car lease, But they want to play with the big boys, and, guess what? You can't go on a world stage and take a guy that's, a despot and an egomaniac and, crap all over him and tell him that he's an idiot. Because guess what? Then when actually something goes wrong and you have to make that phone call, no one's picking up. No one's picking up. I had actually RFK Jr. on my podcast. Actually, we did it earlier and recorded it tonight because I was going to be here. And he was talking about the same thing about his uncle, John Kennedy, and the way he had a deal, sort of a network like that with Khrushchev, where they had an open line. And that's what stopped war, because they enjoyed talking about their kids. And they wanted to make sure they could enjoy the world and not a post-apocalyptic, disaster, which is where we're headed. And so, my father, rather than just taking sort of that easy route of just giving the clowns, when you give the court jester what he wants, it's probably not great for the rest of the world, but then they go after him and critique it. So, I think there's just a lot more there than meets the eye, both from an empathy standpoint and a thought perspective. I'm not saying my father doesn't have an ego, but he doesn't need to be stroked by idiots. He doesn't care. That's the difference. And so he didn't give the media what they wanted. They say he's a traitor and this and that. He's like, and I just go, I'm like, these people are so stupid. It's like, I don't even know how you deal with this every day. It's probably the most impressive thing is that, clowns. It's a clown world, but that's where we're at.
Well, question: are we going to win in November?
Like I said,
then we'll let you go. But are we going to win in November?
We better. And, again, I want to be. I feel as good as I've ever felt at this stage out. But we're not up against. This is not about fairness. I say to win by 1, we got to win by 5. And that was part of the trade-off for Joe Biden, right? Part of the whole Democrats. We're going to run roughshod over democracy to preserve democracy. We're going to just break every democratic norm. We're going to change statute of limitations. We're going to jail our political opponents to preserve democracy. Part of that nonsense shtick is that people actually have to believe it. They needed to change out Joe Biden because no one would have believed that. So again, that doesn't mean they're not going to try every game in the book. We just have to be that much more vigilant. We just have to be that much more assertive. We cannot let apathy get in the way of all of that. And if we do that, it's a no-brainer. We just all have to do it.
Is Trump going to win Oklahoma? Yeah! Will you all stand to your feet and thank Donald Trump Jr. for coming to Tulsa tonight?
Thank you, Jackson. Thank you, man. Well done. I didn't screw it up. We still got this. Thank you, guys.
Thank
you,
you, sir.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Y'all want to keep it going? Now, I'm going to invite, you can take a seat for just a second because we've got some signed MAGA hats to give away from Donald Trump Jr.